Gentleman from Washington is recognized for 3.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my friend from California for yielding me the time. And I have to say that I stand here in opposition to this bill, and I am one that generally supports fair trade liberalization efforts. I believe that when properly structured, trade agreements can benefit all parties involved. But, Mr. Speaker, the Andean Trade Preferences Act is not a trade agreement. This is an agreement to give access to the U.S. market in return for reduced drug production in certain Andean countries. And let me repeat that, Mr. Speaker. This is an agreement to give access to the U.S. market in return for reduced drug production by certain Andean countries. The original idea may have been a noble one, and it probably still is, but the act has proven to be a failure, and as a result, the American asparagus growers have paid a price. In practice, the Andean Trade Preference Act has resulted in higher South American drug production and a steep loss of acreage and processing of asparagus in the United States, as reflected by this chart, where in the last 16 years the amount of acreage has been reduced by 50%. A recent International Trade Commission report found that asparagus was the domestic commodity most negatively affected by the Act. Unlike other sectors, American asparagus growers were not provided a transition period before tariffs on Peruvian imports were unilaterally eliminated. Since the implementation of the Andean Trade Preference Act in 1991, imports of Peruvian asparagus have increased by more than 20 times. These duty-free imports have decimated the U.S. asparagus growers and closed domestic asparagus processing plants in my district. Now, perhaps, Mr. Speaker, if you are not from an asparagus production area in this country, you may be thinking this trade-off is worth it because it results in less drug production. The unfortunate reality is that this act is a failure in that regard, too. The latest studies confirm that cocaine production in the Andean countries is actually higher today than when the Andean Trade Preference Act was adopted in 1991. In other words, we have exported jobs from rural America to these Andean countries, and we're still seeing narcotics production going up. Nevertheless, we are here asking American farmers to sacrifice their livelihoods to perpetuate a wholly unrelated and unsuccessful anti-narcotic strategy. Mr. Speaker, I also regret that we are considering an extension of this flawed policy under a process that denies members the opportunity to amend the bill, the text of which was not even available until a couple of hours ago. This is being rushed to the floor with no time to debate or offer amendments. The market of this bill in Ways and Means was canceled. The bill has not gone through the Rules Committee. The House should have an opportunity to have a full and fair debate on this act, which has a profound negative effect on my constituents. So I urge my colleagues to oppose this bill. And, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from the Seattle Times that more fully points out the dilemma that the asparagus growers have suffered, and also ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an article from the New York Times regarding the plight of the asparagus growers as a result of this act. And with that, I yield back my time.
Without objection, so ordered. Gentleman yield back. Gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
It's my pleasure.